Well, this is a Gehl 1475 round baler, and this gauge here shows how much air is in the tank, and that's getting on the low side. I'll pull this panel off and I'll explain how it works. Okay, panel's off, and now I can see I'm a little low on oil. Cylinder's fully retracted. So I guess before I put air in, I will open it up and top off the oil. Dexron 2, and then pressurize to 120 and 115 or 150. Lower pressure may improve bale starting. Higher pressure will make belt shuttle return faster. That's what that does. There's this chain here, and let me climb up there if I can. You got this thing called the shuttle, and the belts go down and back and down and back and down and back, and as the bale gets bigger, this keeps drawing back, and that gives you more belt to go wrap around the bale. And then when you kick the bale out, the shuttle returns. And now I got to climb back down to show you how that part works. Let's see the chains. There's a chain on each side in here. And they hook to this hook to the shuttle. This here is just the latch. You hook it into here, and that'll take the pressure off the belts if you need to repair one or do whatever. And I also hook that up in the winter time so they aren't sitting all winter with pressure against them. So here's what happens. Hay goes in, starts feeding in, gets rolling, and as it gets bigger, like I was saying, the shuttle starts moving back to give it more belt, which pulls on this chain, which pulls on this hydraulic cylinder. There's 5 different holes here. Right now it's off, and as this comes up, it flips this, and that turns on a restrictor, and the pressure goes up. So as you are baling, it's trying to pull the hydraulic oil out of the upper end, the rod end of this cylinder, and it basically acts as a one-way cylinder. The other end's just got a breather on it. But so it's trying to pull that up. The restrictor kicks on depending on where you have this set. The lower setting here will trip it later, so you get a soft core on your bale. This one, the bale basically gets rolling and doesn't get very big, and then it pushes that lever up, trips it, and the restriction starts. And that puts more pressure against the belts to keep a tight bale. So you can adjust your bale. If it's a little wetter and you want it to breathe a little better, make a looser bale. You move the holes, and it doesn't kick on the center as much. Then you can also adjust this stop here. This adjusts the pressure that the restrictor works at, so that you can make an entirely loose bale or a good tight bale, however you want it. I would just leave that tight. And if it's past having to do this, then it just ain't probably worth baling. And then this shows how much pressure is in the system. Since the cylinder is fully returned, it's just basically whatever air pressure is in here. The majority of the tank is air at first. Then as that cylinder's coming up, it's forcing air into this tank. So the oil level starts coming up, 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 up. I don't think there's any other stickers on there. And of course, the air pressure increases in there because it's getting squished down. So after you kick the bale, that air pressure now wants to push the oil back. And since there's no pressure against the bale, it pushes the oil back in and makes the cylinder retract, pulls the shuttle back to home position, trips this lever back down. And once that's down, there's sensors on the other side that tells it when that's fully returned. There's a sensor to let it know when the gate's returned. When it's done all that, then it will beep and let you know you're ready to start going forward and make the next bale. Now the problem with being down around 90 psi is the shuttle will return a little slower, especially if it's colder out. Warm day today, but you might have to wait a second or so before after you've closed the tailgate before it finally beeps. So you get it up higher, shuttle will return quicker, you can get making your next bale, but there's also more tension on the belts when you're first trying to get it rolling, so sometimes that can make it a little harder to get a bale started. But 90's getting down there. I mean, they recommend 110 to 150, so I'm low. And then, like I say, as you can see here, she's a little low on oil. It must be seeping out somewhere. It's been a few years since I've put any in it. So I'm gonna carefully remove the cap, get the pressure off, add some ATF, cap it back up, and pump her back up. Okay, took the plug out, which is also a relief valve in case you overfill it and the pressure gets too high so the tank doesn't blow up. Got my air hose, put some pressure in her. If you watch this, I bet it'll go down just a little bit because with no air pressure on it, the weight of the belts kind of pulled the cylinder back a little bit and put a little oil in there. So I filled it just above the safe level, but it should go back down. Tire gauge here says 125, and that's right about at 125, so that's good. They both read the same thing. I have to get the air compressor to kick on in order to make it go any higher. Yeah, as you can see, I might let air out and do it again because now that I got air pressure in it, it's at the lower end of the safe level. Guess it could use a little more. Go figure. All right, let's try her again. This should kick the air compressor on this time. Probably. There it goes. Yeah, I got it at not quite 145. I think that's good. Last time I filled it up, I didn't have this air compressor and couldn't get it up that high, and it worked good around 120. So this should help the shuttle return quicker. And I added 1 quart overall, and I am at the top of the safe level. So that's good. I just got to put that side panel back on and put some twine in it, and I can go bale some hay. This is the inside of the chamber from the back. You might have seen some of my other videos where it shows a bale forming, and it forms there we go. It forms right in this area. Those belts will push up. There's a drum underneath, and the belts are going the other way, and that gets the bale rolling. And then that roller up there helps keep the shape of the bale at first when it's first forming, and then it pushes forward, gets out of the way as the bale gets bigger. It's got tines that go between each belt to keep them spaced right until the bale starts getting tight. And from there, it just keeps feeding in, rolling bigger. The shuttle up top keeps moving back to give more belt. When it gets big enough, the alarm sounds. It triggers off and sends the twine arm across. The hay grabs the twine, you stop moving forward. Here you can see the fingers that keep the belts separated and help the bale start rolling. Twine goes across and then gets cut off on the end. It doesn't actually get tied in a knot or anything. It's just the tension of the bale. When it comes out, it expands against that twine, and the friction of that against the strings in the hay keeps everything tight, and the bale drops out and is done. And tailgate closes and start all over again. Time to make some hay, and using the white American as usual. I know I've got a lot of new viewers since I did a video on this, so just do a quick rundown. White wanted a smaller tractor, under 100 horsepower for that market. They had been working with Izeki in the past and Fiat, and for their smaller utility tractors. and they decided to bring back the Oliver 1655 and 1555 with updates. One of the biggest updates was the Cummins engine, 4B engine, turbocharged in the 80 and naturally aspirated in a 60. Used the Oliver transmission, 6 speeds forward, 2 reversed. The 1555 version, or the American 60, had the straight cut gears, and the 80 had the 1655 transmission, the helical cut transmission, sliding shift collar, so it does shift easier. 3-speed power shift. The over and under unit was regular equipment on the 80 and optional on the 60. And the first year they weren't available with a cab. This one I believe was a 90. They started in 89, went through 91. Not a very long-lived series. And the reason they call them the American series is at the time they were the only tractors under 100 horsepower that were built in the United States. And so they wanted to cash in on that, and also on customer loyalty. You could order these in one of 4 colors. The original, or you could order it in white silver, cockshot red, Minneapolis Moline Prairie Gold, or meadow green for Oliver. Of course, us being a former Oliver dealer, that was the only way Dad would order them in. This was one we had on the lot, and when AGCO sent word that they were discontinuing the American series, Dad pulled this one off the lot, and we sold our white 2135 and replaced it with this. We weren't using the 2135 for big work anymore, mostly just hay work that this tractor could do. So I'm glad Dad did, kept it up, relatively low hours. Been a good little tractor. There was other bells and whistles. They hydraulically activated PTO. The 1555 and 1655 were mechanical. They should have updated the brakes. They're still the same brakes as those Oliver models. Dry double disc brakes. Not as good as a newer power brake. But it all takes money, and they had several things they wanted to do and still keep a price point where they were competitive, and that limited how many bells and whistles they could come up with. If you had front wheel assist, it was push button to turn that on and off. Probably a nice feature. This one's nice for haying with 2-wheel drive, although I wouldn't have argued if it was 4-wheel drive, but you get what you get. This is all original paint on this one. Only time it's outdoors is when it's working. The rest of the time it stays out of the sun and the weather. The cab kit, the upholstery is pretty much shot after all these years, and I have a new one to put in it. Just got to find the time to do it one of these days. But even when you keep them in, eventually the foam behind all that stuff just breaks down and dies. Gonna be a nice day for air conditioning. There you go, 2,718 original hours. Clear out my bales. I believe if I hold enter for so many seconds, it will tell me the lifetime count of bales. It's been a long time, 7,440. For a machine it's almost 30 years old. I guess that's not a bad, probably pretty low count. There's probably guys that put that much through in a year. We used to make more hay, and it's gotten to where I square bale more, so it just doesn't get quite as many through it as it used to. But it's paid for. I like making hay, which is what I should probably be doing. So let's head to the field. Actually, I've already made one. busy day. Hey look, no one's been able to drive their golf cart through the fence line. What could have happened? So bright outside. Stick in the pickup. Oops. I guess there it is. For some reason it doesn't want to eat that. There we go, that's about a half-size bale. You can see from the shiny on the wall. The shuttle's about halfway back up above. We can also, this is the opposite side of earlier. You can see the cylinder is extended. It's probably closer to a full-size bale than I'm thinking. There's not a whole lot of distance left. Here's a magnet that comes down to a sensor down here to make sure the shuttle's returned all the way before it lets you make a new bale. And that's the sensor, which I need to adjust. That reads as these sprockets go by. And that's how it figures out how big your bale is. And it reads just a little shy, so I got it set. I got it telling it to make a smaller bale because otherwise it'll fill up. And there's a mechanism on the other side. When the shuttle gets all the way back, it'll turn off the pickup so you don't overfill it and bust something. And so I was getting to the point where the pickup was turning off, but it said if I didn't have a full-size bale, so I got to readjust that. Never seems important until I'm bailing. Tying off. See the twine kind of zipping along there, and if you can see down in there, the arm moving across. It's at the end, so it puts a couple extra wraps on the outside edges. That's where you'll have your trouble. You don't need as much in the middle. And it's cut off. Most of the time I don't have to back up, but sometimes you get on a hill or something, the bales can try to chase you. Now let's see how fast that shuttle returns. Beep, yeah, much better than before. Used to be it'd take a second or two for it to reset. there's only so long it'll go before it shoots you an error code. Then you got to get out and see what's going on.